Hi guys, I spoke with MIT scientist Stephanie Seneff today um, regarding coronavirus testing, and also it envelops issues of testing for HIV, but mainly it's about the link that glyphosate has. That is the 6,000 pound gorilla in our midst, and how this one is linked with so many of these epidemics that are appearing, real or imagined, which has to do with a severely compromised immune system, and how glyphosate plays a role in that. So take a listen. And also another thing, it's about viruses. There is perhaps a misconception that viruses are all deadly and we should get rid of them. As far we can't get rid of them, but more importantly, viruses have played a very important part in donating genetic material to higher animals like ourselves, which makes evolution and immunity possible. So we have to rethink of our conception of viruses, and also all this. So anyway, glyphosate seems to be one of the, perhaps the most important factor in all this. Hear her out. Okay, so I'll put you on record if it's okay with you, and I would like to get your, first of all, your opinion that if this
Yeah.
coronavirus thing is if it attacks people with immunity compromised persons, then isn't
Yes.
a better long-term cure or prevention should have been to remove toxicity from food such as glyphosate? What do you think?
Absolutely. That's exactly what I think. I think glyphosate is a major player in this game,
So,
starting with Wuhan.
yeah, does Wuhan? I know glyphosate is produced in China. Is it also happening in Wuhan? I don't know about
Yes.
that.
Yes, Wuhan, I've looked into it. Wuhan is at the confluence of the Han and the Yangtze River. Are we recording now?
Yeah, you're on record.
Okay, good. Wuhan is at the confluence of the Han and the Yangtze River, and the Yangtze River has all kinds of factories along it that produce all kinds of toxic things that dump into the river, including a factory where glyphosate is produced. I'm pretty sure that's true. I found stuff on the web about that. A glyphosate producing factory on the Yangtze River. So I suspect that Wuhan is hit hard by glyphosate because of the factory. I mean, that's an interesting angle there that we don't know about. Wuhan is also at a low-lying area with rivers coming in, so that's kind of the most toxic situation. When you look at the kidney failure in Sri Lanka and in Central America, the ones that are in the low-lying areas are the ones that are hardest hit because they're getting water supply coming in from higher levels where glyphosate is being used on the fields. So they're getting a lot more glyphosate exposure from their water in the low-lying areas, and that's why they're getting sicker with things like kidney disease.
Yeah. So isn't it unfortunate that we are running about like headless chickens about coronavirus, and nobody talks about some of the root issues, like the effect of glyphosate on our immune system? Okay.
Absolutely. And my studies have shown that glyphosate, if I'm right about glyphosate substituting for glycine, that has huge impact on the innate immune system. Absolutely huge. Because there's several different proteins that are involved, that are produced by the immune cells, that go out and basically act like a vacuum cleaner, binding to various toxic chemicals as well as viruses, binding to them and then hooking them to the cell so that the immune cell can eat them up, can remove them. And all of these proteins have a stalk that's made out of essentially collagen. It's a collagen-like sequence of GXY with every third amino acid being a glycine. That is extremely susceptible to glyphosate substitution, which would mess it up. So my guess is that is really hurting the immune cell's ability to vacuum up the viruses. Just that alone. And then there's the whole sulfate system that's completely wrecked by glyphosate. And you need sulfate. The immune cells need sulfate to be able to clear debris, including viruses. So I think the innate immune system is unable to clear these viruses. The other thing is that glyphosate disrupts the antioxidant system, I believe, big time. And there's all kinds of proteins that have what's called a Rossmann fold. It's a sequence that has GXGXXG, three glycines, absolutely conserved across all the species, going all the way back to the bacteria and the humans and the plants. They all have this GXGXXG sequence in these class of proteins called flavoproteins, and those proteins are absolutely important for detoxing reactive oxygen species. So like superoxide and hydrogen peroxide, all these things that are released by the immune cells when they see a viral infection. So what's happening is the virus is not being cleared. The immune system goes on fire. It starts releasing all these reactive oxygen species to try to kill the virus. And then it would normally be able to mop them up because it would have this efficient removal system with glutathione and vitamin C, all these antioxidants that we hear so much about. They don't work properly because glyphosate is messing up the enzymes that would convert the superoxide into harmless water. Glyphosate is disrupting those enzymes. And that's causing the lungs to just be completely, destroyed by the immune system. It's trying to clear the virus, and it can't clear because the glyphosate is poisoning everything.
Can I ask
That's
you?
What I think.
Thanks for that. Have you considered, or have you already written about it in some paper somewhere?
I've written extensively about it in the book that I'm trying to publish, although my publisher wants me to.
Oh,
The publisher thinks the book is too hard and wants to kill a lot of it, so I don't know what's going to survive.
Oh, I see.
I'm frustrated. The publisher thinks the population can't handle the science, so they want me to simplify it. So we don't know what's going to survive, but I'm hoping. I want to add a chapter that talks about the coronavirus since that's so important now. But they want it to be shrunk, so I'm in kind of a battle with my publisher right now.
Okay, I wish you good luck, and once the book comes out, I will be sure to get hold of it, unless it costs like $200-300 or something,
No, I don't think it will, and I will send you actually a copy of the draft that I have. You can read that all you like.
Fantastic, thank you. I have another side question. As you were speaking about this ability of the immune system to vacuum up the viruses, and the topic of antioxidant and superoxidant and so on came up. Can you explain in simple terms for the non-scientific minded people, what is it about the oxidation of minerals or oxidation of anything is involved with this virus attack, and what is oxidation and what is an antioxidant? What does it mean?
Well, so the body, actually metabolism requires producing these very reactive oxygen-containing, very small oxygen-containing molecules that are very reactive. Normally the enzymes are very well designed to sort of make sure that reactive oxygen goes and does something to the substrate to turn it into something else. So it's trying to change the biological molecules. For example, to process glucose, to consume glucose and turn it into energy. You have to make things happen in reactions, in chemical reactions. And the enzymes are really good at catalyzing to make these reactions happen that normally wouldn't take place. But they've got a very special design to sort of put those reactive species inside a little pocket hiding inside that enzyme to make it safe, so that it will just react with the thing that the enzyme's holding on to make it react with it. Everything's very contained in sort of a container, like a fireplace. But because the enzyme gets glyphosate in it, it messes up the shape of the enzyme, and the superoxide gets loose.
Oh.
That's, I think, a part of the problem with glyphosate. It gets loose and starts attacking other things because superoxide is very reactive. So it can mess up the lipids that are in the cell membrane, the fats, or the DNA. It can cause genetic mutations. I mean, it really messes up the cell. And then the cell has no choice but to die. If it gets enough of these superoxide molecules going around and causing trouble, it'll die. So you kill off the cells. There's also a tremendous amount of mucus that's produced in response to this virus. It's really, the mucus kind of overwhelms the lungs to the point where you can't breathe anymore. And that's interesting too. I think that the body's ability to make sulfomucins is impaired by glyphosate, so that we have a deficiency. And that is a deficiency in our barriers, which makes our barriers more susceptible to invasion. Both the lungs and the gut, their barrier is weak because there's not enough sulfomucins. And I actually think that the virus is actually trying to, my whole thing is that these viruses are trying to do something to help you. And the person is desperate for sulfomucins, but the virus makes it is able to make the sulfur-mutants, and it makes way too many because it's so happy to be able to make them, and you're coughing them up and you're swallowing them, so it's actually supplying those sulfur-mutants to the gut, and the gut is also very deficient. So the virus is sort of helping the body to build sulfur-mutants, cough them up, swallow them, supply them to the gut to help improve the gut's barrier. It's a strategy to try to save you from a situation that you're in because of the glyphosate poisoning, where you're going to die if you don't do something. And so the people who survive the virus are probably going to be better off once they survive it, because they're going to have more sulfur-mutants in their gut that's going to improve their gut barrier. The virus enables them to do that because it helps to transport the sulfur-mutants. It just transports the sulfate that the sulfur-mutants need.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so very, very briefly, what is the definition of an antioxidant? What is an antioxidant?
An antioxidant is a molecule that is able to basically mop up those superoxide, those reactive oxygen species. Those, you have these reactive molecules that are eager to go attack something, and the antioxidant says, hey, attack me. It's very much available to be attacked, and it knows that when it gets attacked, it gets turned into something harmless. So it basically detoxes the reactive oxygen species. It disappears it. It turns it into water, for example.
Okay, I got that. Now, to come back to
glutathione is a very good example, by the way, glutathione. So reduced glutathione is an antioxidant. And glutathione deficiency is glyphosate causes glutathione deficiency. Glutathione is extremely important in the liver and in the brain and in many places to protect from these reactive oxygen species. Glutathione turns into a double glutathione molecule when it sees one of these reactive oxygen species. It turns into something called GSSG, two glutathiones stuck together. And that's the reaction that takes place. Two glutathione molecules get stuck together in response to one of these dangerous reactive oxygen species. And that eats it up and turns that reactive oxygen species into water, which is harmless.
Okay, thanks a lot. Now, going back to what 2-3 items we are supposed to talk about. One of them is this paper from David Crow, where you said that you had the same suspicion about testing of HIV as against current testing of coronavirus. Can you explain what you mean about the testing part?
My understanding is that the testing involves testing for a number of different amino acid protein sequences. Well, it's basically DNA sequences in the genetic code. They've sort of identified a set of genetic sequences that they believe the coronavirus produces. And so when they test for the virus, they test to see if you have those sequences in your body, if those sequences are in your body. And if you get enough of them matching well enough, then you get a ding, 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 you know. But there's basically thresholding there. So you could be not negative or positive depending upon where they set the threshold. It's not like perfect match, you know. There's error in the algorithm. And where do you put the set point on the algorithm? You can manipulate that to decide you do have it or you don't have it. You know, like it's not a cut and dried test, in my opinion. It's fuzzy.
And the same.
And so you could end up telling someone they have the virus when they don't. Now, there's even a question whether the virus exists. I mean, I don't know. I'm agnostic on that. I think the AIDS virus may very well exist, but I think glyphosate is what's caused the epidemic in AIDS. The same thing there. The AIDS epidemic matches very well with glyphosate, by the way. The places where AIDS first appeared were the places where glyphosate was introduced early. And then typically AIDS followed glyphosate around the world. Like in northern India, they started using glyphosate. And a few years later, they got an AIDS epidemic. It's connected to AIDS. And I think it's because, same thing, glyphosate is messing up your innate immune system. So this virus is able to cause damage, whereas before it would have been harmless because your immune system would have just laughed at it. It wouldn't have been a problem at all. So again, I think glyphosate is making all these viruses much more toxic than they would otherwise be because it's wrecking our innate immune system. That's what I believe. And whether the virus exists or not, I'm still agnostic on that. For both the AIDS virus and the coronavirus, there's this whole concept that we've portrayed, you know, in the scientific world that these viruses are real and that they have a specific sequence and that we can just match for that sequence and that when you get a positive test, it's guaranteed that you have it. These are all assumptions that we're making. I just don't know if those assumptions are really true, you know?
Yeah. Although the AIDS patients, so-called AIDS patients, they are dying or they are seriously being, their health is harmed. That part is sure. But if it is
Absolutely,
not,
I'm not denying that.
and if it is not from
The thing is that it's because their immune system has been wrecked by glyphosate that they can't handle that virus. Viruses are agents of change. I believe the viruses are a really important mechanism for evolution. We have lots of retroviruses in our DNA. In fact, even the placenta has something in it that clearly comes from a retrovirus that is an important protein that works in the placenta in an essential way. So we have our proteins are derived from viral proteins, many of our proteins. And we have a lot of viruses in our DNA that we don't know why they're there or what they do. I mean, we don't really understand DNA very well. Even the scientific experts don't understand it very well. And we don't understand viruses either. We think of viruses as bad things that cause disease. I think that's the wrong way to look at them. They
oh
are
no, I don't believe
agents of
that at
change.
all.
So right now we're in a very bad situation because we're all being poisoned by glyphosate. We have all these glycine residues that are getting wrecked. And our body desperately needs to have new versions of our proteins that don't use glycine at that place. So we are in a rapid evolution stage where certain genes have to be mutated until we can find a solution that works. And a good example is G6PD, glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase. Very, very important enzyme in the red blood cells. And that enzyme makes glutathione and vitamin C work properly. It's essential for them to work properly. And that enzyme has been shown to get suppressed by glyphosate, which does not surprise me because there's all kinds of essential glycine residues in that enzyme. That enzyme is the most heavily mutated enzyme in humans. Many people have variants of that enzyme that are not the same as the so-called standard version. And many of those variants are causing it to not work properly. The body is trying to find a version of that enzyme that still works properly but doesn't have those glycines in it so that it won't be vulnerable to glyphosate substitution. That's what I think is going on. We're having, right now, the rate of evolution of different codes for different proteins is different among different proteins. And it's very interesting because there's a high rate of evolution right now of glycine residues, especially glycine residues that have a glycine next door to them. A GG sequence, glycine in the DNA, that second glycine is much more susceptible to mutational change than other amino acids in all the other proteins. It's very sensitive to change, which is very interesting because they don't understand why. I think the reason is because the second glycine of a glycine-glycine pair is extremely susceptible to glyphosate substitution. It's got a very tiny amino acid next door to it, so glyphosate can comfortably fit its extra piece that's stuck on its nitrogen atom. Mm-hmm. It's really, really interesting. So we're getting increased genetic mutations. We're getting increased rate of mutation, increased rate of genetic diseases, like even type 1 diabetes. Those diseases are going up right now in our society because of the poisons that we're being exposed to. And I think glyphosate is a major player there, that it's causing the system to realize that its proteins aren't working in the current environment. And then it's scrambling to try something else to see if we can make that work better. And many times, of course, it's failing miserably, and you get some completely broken version of the protein and you die with the genetic mutation that didn't work. So there's a whole process of evolution where things are getting weeded out. Every once in a while, somebody gets lucky, and the mutation actually makes their protein still work properly, but be insensitive to glyphosate. And that's a huge win. If you get that, that's going to survive in the population if we continue to expose ourselves to glyphosate. I've been identifying glycines that are especially susceptible. It's extremely interesting because you can find basically it's places that bind phosphate. That's a general rule. If the protein has a highly conserved site that binds phosphate, then that site is likely to be highly susceptible to glyphosate. And that's what's going on with the EPSP synthase, which is the enzyme that famously disrupts glyphosate in the plants to kill them, EPSP synthase.
Yeah.
That enzyme has a glycine residue at the place where it binds phosphate that's highly conserved. And if you change that glycine to alanine, which is just a very small change, add an extra methyl group, it's completely insensitive to glyphosate, completely insensitive, which is remarkable.
Yeah, but it doesn't work.
Small change.
Yeah, but it works, but doesn't work as well as if the original glycine was there.
That's right. It doesn't work as well as the original protein, but it's completely insensitive to glyphosate. That's because the code has changed. The code doesn't match anymore. If the code matches glycine, glyphosate can substitute. If it matches alanine, it doesn't substitute at all.
Yeah,
It's black and white.
in simple ways, one can say that this alanine substitution finds a protection against glyphosate, but the price you pay is less efficiency.
That's right. But you can fix that too by changing another amino acid nearby to give a little more room to the substrate.
I see.
And that's actually what's happened. So and they've been able to design. There was a whole study done by some guys from Dow DuPont recently where they actually, because they use this CRISPR technology, they can specifically go in and change the genes. They created a version of EPSP synthase in a corn plant that had alanine instead of glycine at that place. And then they tweaked something else nearby to give more room for the substrate, and they made a version of the protein that worked perfectly fine and was completely insensitive to glyphosate. So now they've got a CRISPR version of a GMO corn that's insensitive to glyphosate without actually putting in it's not considered GMO because it's CRISPR instead of being inserted into a bacterial gene. It actually uses the corn's own gene and changes it with CRISPR technology. Very scary because they're going to be able to do this now with all kinds of plants to create all kinds of resistance to various herbicides, and they're going to poison us even more.
Yeah, I mean, all this fancy technology, all it does is produce more food that is laced with more poisons that we eat. Even if the plant doesn't die, we die.
That's right. That's the game. It seems like. I mean, it seems like we're determined to wipe ourselves out. It seems really crazy to me that the industry is not aware of what they're doing. I mean, or that they don't care. If they are aware, they don't care what they're doing. I don't understand that. That's the part I absolutely do not understand.
Okay, so
either they're not aware, or they don't care, and neither one of those is acceptable to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's it, folks. That was Dr. Stephanie Seneff talking about coronavirus and HIV and testing and how glyphosate ties all of it together to a basic problem of our immunity being destroyed from this poison, and how industry is busy wiping all of us out. Anyway, thanks for listening and stay tuned. Bye.